Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. Hey, Max, I see you in the chat. I'll do my best. So last week was my first episode. Those of you who caught it or saw it on replay, had a bit of a hiccup with my rig. Just wanted to let everybody know the rig is actually fine. What ended up happening was I had everything was just pigtailed because it was only temporary wiring, and the positive and one of the negative pigtails, I had little covers on them. They must have just moved ever so slightly as I was shifting that rig around right before going live to get the camera position right. And they must have been just like resting against each other ever so slightly, and gave me that little puff of smoke. But the battery protection worked like it's supposed to, so no damage to the board, no damage to the battery, just the slightest ever little singe on a piece of insulation. So that was all good. So that's what happens, particularly, I like even myself, when you're test wiring stuff, sometimes you twist everything together and you do your best to keep stuff separate, but you lose track of that. So I've had that a couple times. I'm sure anybody who's messed around with stuff has once in a while done it. Sometimes you have some bad results. Sometimes you get lucky. So I got lucky. So that's all good, but no test rig tonight anyway. I'm actually going to do something a little different. Uh, if there are questions at all during the point, put them in the chat. I'm going to try to catch up to them at the end. I also got a couple questions that the reminder does not reload. I'm going to read the chat after because it's going to take me off my off of what I'm after. But so I've actually designed a couple styles. They're not on the library yet because as I was putting them together, I thought, they're going to be a little more complex, but it actually is a good teaching opportunity, and that's really what I want to do. The fun with Saber Effects, yes, it's a callback to Dr. Sheldon Cooper, but it's really is to me a lot of fun. Being able to come up with new ideas, think up stuff, and to me that's what I love most about Proffi, is being able to think of something and then actually make it happen on my Saber. I've got a couple of effects. They're all related, but I'm going to actually build them and explain it. So being totally transparent, this is going to be abbreviated. So when I actually develop effects, I'll typically start with an idea, put them together. Now that the editor is available, I use the editor. When the editor wasn't available, I did everything hand-coded. And I test it out on the Saber and make tweaks back and forth. So I'm going to show the process start to finish, but just know this is very abbreviated. It's not, if you're going to go after particularly some more advanced effects, a lot of it's trial and error. So for what everybody sees at the end of the day, there's probably a dozen or so failed attempts that didn't quite hit the mark. And that's part of the fun is, you think of something and you design it. And then once you get it just right or where you're happy with it, it's very rewarding. So that's what I want to show. So anybody who's tuning in who doesn't have a Proffieboard, I just want to show off kind of how you do the effects. You don't have to do this level. So particularly tonight, there's going to be a lot of advanced stuff. I know some people really follow along this stuff and they already make their own styles, so this will be kind of good for them. If you're beginning, this might be a little advanced, but I just want to give you an idea of the tools and the capabilities, and then you work your way through it. And again, particularly with the editor, which is what I'll be using tonight, there's no failing. You try to do something, it doesn't work. And the editor, because it's all just, it's essentially just showing you what's possible. It makes it a lot of fun, and that's really how I got my beginning. So way back when I first started, Meg2 Sith actually turned me on to the editor when I first got my first Proffi, and he had given me a couple of effects that he had designed, and he said, oh, if you want to change some stuff here, just use this editor. And once I got that editor tool, I was kind of sucked into it, and I was just like, oh, what if I do this and this and this? And that's kind of how I got to building the library that everybody sees. It started out with just doing really basic stuff, and then slowly building on it and realizing that it's almost like every time you try something new, you learn something new. So that's kind of what I'm hoping tonight will do for a lot of people. So let me catch up with the chat. So hey everybody, thanks for joining in. Hey Space, hey Peter, Rodney, hey Brian, Max. Let's see how this. I'm also learning this tool for the live stream to be able to do all this. Laser Boy, I think that's everybody, and then whoever else is joining us. Let me switch over screens again, learning these controls. Let's do this here. All right, so tonight is going to primarily be about a new style, and I'm gonna, like I said in my intro, this is gonna be. I already kind of did this, so it's a little bit of cheating. This isn't typically how fast it goes, but I want to kind of explain the different levels. And I've had a couple questions offline before this about layers, about designing tools, or about designing styles, as well as editing them. And for everybody who's just starting out, or even if you're doing it for a long time, the editor is a great tool to get started in. So what we're going to build tonight, and you'll kind of see the process, is going to use layers, obviously. It's also going to use a lot of transitions. And then using those, and I'm hoping that in showing how the style gets built, maybe it sparks some new ideas in other people. Because really, every once in a while, when somebody will send something my way, or think up something and they'll post it, or some people message me right away, and I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be cool, and I try it out, but then that actually leads to something else, and that's how these kind of all come about. So last week I did put out the summon and release, which was the Thor, the lightning summon, the lightning release effects, and they kind of rolled into this concept. So what I'm going to build tonight is I'm actually building a new style, which will be on the library probably tomorrow, which it's actually going to be a thunderstorm. So I'm going to turn the blade that you see here, the blue blade, into an actual thunderstorm blade, and it would work for Thor, but it also works for other uses. But again, the concepts behind it would also hopefully lead to maybe some other uses, some other effects. So we're going to start off really simple, and then this will kind of just pick up. So let's see, Chet Osborne, hey, how's it going? All right, let me jump in, showing the screen there. All right, so transitions in Proffi, particularly OS 4. Transitions can do everything. So between the combination of layers, which you're going to see, and transitions, it's almost like you can design like a movie or like an animation on your Saber. Oh, my Saber's over there, and you guys can't see me anyway. I'm showing that screen. We're going to use now. You can use transitions for effects. So the transition effect L and transition effect, they're typically used for specific effects, which are events. So stab, clash, blast, lockup, drag. All of those are things that happen that you trigger through some, either through a gesture, through some interacting with the Saber, and those allow you to have something happen at a specific time. If you want to use transitions to actually set up what the blade does when it's just active, you use transition loop. So I'm gonna use transition loop, and we're gonna use transition loop to build this thunderstorm style. So we're gonna go into styles, making sure that we're showing, and we're gonna go to transition loop. All transition loop does is essentially it allows you to have a transition effect without an effect to trigger it, and it just always runs. Now, as you can see here, this essentially turns this one into almost like a quick pulse, and this is just the default one. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to build it as blue, and then just because for the colors that I've designed, they work well together with blue, but then I'll expand this out and we'll have all the other color versions on the library. So first thing up with transition loop, so there is a transition loop L which we'll touch. This is for base layer. So your base layer needs to be a full style, or a color when you're doing layers. So if you think about if you were stacking stuff, you have to have a solid foundation. So it has to be, you can't have like a transparent base layer. You have to have a solid base layer. So you're going to use styles, or you could just have flat colors if you're doing layers. But we're going to start with transition loop, and then the transition loop requires a base color, and then it has a transition that runs over the top of it. Now the fade here, I'm not going to use fade. What I'm after is a thunderstorm, and thunderstorm is obviously known for your flashes of lightning, which you see in the clouds, which is what I'm going to get after. So I'm going to take away this TR fade. I'm going to swap in the boing. So the boing is it's a number of back and forth, which just means it's flipping the colors in a number of time. And again, for those who are joining us now, I've already built this style, so I already did a lot of testing here. So this is going to be abbreviated, but this is kind of the approach. So I'm going to change these timings out here. I'm going to go to a 500 millisecond timing, and I want 3 bounces or 3 boings to occur in that period. I'm going to submit that. Then, so there we go. So now that's going to be what's happening there. This fade I don't love. So I'm going to take the fade out, and what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to put a delay in. And we will go, actually want to space that delay out, so I'm going to extend that delay time, hit submit, and now it should be good there. All right, so now red doesn't go with blue, so I'm going to swap out my color red. And it helps if I hit numbers instead of letters. And so for those of you who don't know the RGB values, again, I've been playing with these a lot, but basically solid blue is essentially equivalent to RGB 00255. So by going RGB 00128, that's like the 50%-ish. It's essentially 50%, but that's 50% the value. And particularly with effects and animations, don't be afraid to go dimmer. So everything about particularly NeoPixel and Sabers is always about the brightness, but part of when it comes to thinking up effects, if you're always bright on bright, you actually can't see the nuances and styles. So a lot of my styles already mix in dimmer colors. But when you're designing stuff, think about that if you have some dim, animations or some dim spots in the blade, as long as they're not black or as long as they're not too dark, you can actually create a little bit more depth. I'm not a painter, but if you think about paintings, if they just made everything a flat color, you don't get any of that dimension to it. They always have shading, they always have lighting. So using the dimmer versions of colors is how I get a lot of these effects across. So we're going to apply that RGB. And so now what we're getting is what's happening is there's 3 bounces of, essentially it's actually 3 bounces of this half blue, but because there's a delay, the blue stays active longer, the dim blue. So the regular blue becomes the bright flashes. So that's kind of the thunder effect there. Now this is only the first beginning. So what we've got now is it's running, I've got a base blue color, I'm running a transition over it in a continuous loop of 500 milliseconds, and it's going to bounce back and forth 3 times with the color RGB 00128. And then there's a delay of the 1,000 milliseconds between when it starts over again. A lot of times, if you just layer all these transitions back to back to back and don't put delays in, they almost become like the pulses, the blinks, and they kind of fade away. The ability to delay stuff, which you'll see actually a little bit later, really adds to it. So now I've got kind of this is again just the start. I've got a baseline here. I've got the flashing I want for my thunder. So now what I want to do is, and actually I want to extend this delay out. It's still happening a little too frequently for my taste. So I'm going to change it there. You could change it here. I'm changing it here. All right, that should be a little bit better. All right, so now I've got the basics for the thunder part, but now a storm is also made up of clouds. So I'm going to actually add some clouds to this effect. And I've done a lot of different methods for this, but the one I want to show you is using stripes. And for those of you who are using my styles, you'll see stripes more and more. Stripes is another way to get animation in, particularly if you want to get depth animation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take the color, this RGB 00128 color, and so that delayed time has that active all. I'm going to turn this into kind of my clouds, and how I'm going to do it. And again, I've already kind of been testing with these, and I know the syntax. You can grab, if you wanted to, you can go into styles and you can grab stripes. It'll preload. Again, I'm taking some shortcuts, first of all for time, secondly because I've kind of already got this style working. So we're going to grab stripes. I'm going to make the stripes really big. So the first number in stripes is how big that stripe is. And so I'm doing 10,000 as the stripe width. And then the second number in stripes is going to be the speed it goes at. And I actually want it to move a little slowly, so I'm going to do only 100. And I forget the exact translation. It'll show us in a minute on the side. Again, a lot of this is from memory. I got my first color. I've actually got my first color of that RGB. Now, when you want to get movement, you want to have different shades of the same color next to each other. So I'm going to actually put in a very dim color here. Let me catch up. Yeah, I don't do 3D art, Max, but yes. Hey, Tom. Hey, Meg2. Thanks for joining us. Um, what I'm doing now is I'm kind of walking through a new style I've designed and explaining it and hoping to teach off of it. You missed a little bit of the beginning, but you'll still catch some good stuff. So let's see. So now I'm going to really go dim on the second stripe. And then I want to actually get back towards my main color, which is the blue. And you can use the color picker if you go under colors. If you want to pick colors, you can use this color picker if you wanted to. Again, I've already done a lot of this pieces so that I'm not kind of hunting and pecking. But so now I've got stripes. So I'm going to swap out just that single color, and then I'm going to put this in. All right, and you can already see, yeah, it shows pretty well on the screen. So what's happening is those stripes, they're pretty large stripes. It's not like those little tight stripes you're used to seeing, but it's already got kind of a movement, and it's got the depth, it's got brightness and dim. So that's going to be kind of my baseline for the cloud look. So again, we are going after a thunderstorm look. So that's kind of, it's a good start for clouds, but clouds don't always necessarily go in one direction. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to layer here. So layers, you can have layers inside of layers. So we're building right now a base one, and then we're going to layer on top of it. So let me see. I see a bunch of questions just chimed in. Let's see, basics guide. I think I can show these. Let me play with it because I'm using this new tool. Let's see. Hey, that worked. So is there a basics guide before I play with hardware effects? I do have a crash course series on my channel. So if you go for the Proffieboard OS4 tutorials, I have a crash course that starts pretty basic and then moves its way up. And really what you just need to do is learn the basic controls of the editor. And then it lets you build this stuff on top of it. And for those of you who are super new to this, I jump in back and forth between using the controls on the side here and typing stuff into this text box. Both mechanisms work. The only thing you have to keep in mind, anything you type in this text box, you have to hit submit before it's added. So, and I've done it myself where you make a bunch of changes in this box and you go to view it and you don't hit submit and then it's not there. So that happens. If you click off of stuff on here, it automatically adds it. But that's kind of the basic controls. Once you learn that, you can really just dive in and play. Let's see. Yeah, okay, yeah, we got that. Yep. Yes, Megtooth has tutorials as well. Let's see. Yeah, so Zeth, I'm terrible at pronunciation, so just putting it out there. If I pull your name up and I'm totally butcher your name, it's on me. That's just me. So what Stripes does is it's actually going to, it creates the difference. So if I tighten this up, I'll show you. If I tighten this up to really tight stripes, it actually gets much smaller. The larger those stripes get, that might be too tight. Let's go to 1,000. So you can see there is a little bit of a blend between them, but that blend stretches the bigger the stripes get. And so as you get towards, that's why I usually get into the 10,000s for a lot of these styles that I'm adding animation to, because they blend together much better. If you come with really tight stripes, you do get more delineation as you get the smaller size. Seth, but with the Z, gotcha. So let's put this back up to 10,000. And all of this you just mess around with. And that's really how I've come to find this stuff. But let me circle back. So if there's more chats, I'm going to get this next layer in, then we'll come back to the chats. So I'm going to layer this up. So I've got my basic, we'll call this my base layer cloud. I'm going to put layers in. And I had a question from Justin. I don't know if he's on. He sent me this offline, kind of just wanting to know about hand coding layers. So this is, if you're joining us and you just haven't chimed in yet, this is kind of what I'm doing right now. So what I do when I'm setting up layers, set up your layers parameter, open it, I hit enter, and then right away I'm going to go down and I'm going to close layers. So if you're totally unfamiliar with styles in Proffi, the opening and closing brackets, greater than, less than, or I'm sorry, less than, greater than, those are really important. If you're missing one, or if you're missing a comma, you'll end up with errors. So you always want to include those. So for me, just because I do hand code a lot of these styles, I always put the beginning and end in every time so I don't forget it. Now, so what's going to happen now is in this layer, this stripes is going to be the base layer. And again, anytime you have layers, that base has to be a solid color or a solid effect. Now we're going to put a comma because they have to have commas between the layers. And then this line here is going to be my next layer. Now, if I just slap, and let me show it, if I just slap a color over here and hit submit, my clouds are gone. All right, because the first layer is your base, and then everything going down lays on top of it. So if you have to have a solid base layer, but if I throw another solid layer on top of it, I'm going to obscure or cover up that other layer. So you can't just drop another color in. You're going to actually start using layers. And there is the layers control here. And what I want to do is the easiest thing to do if you want to totally design is to use the alpha layer. Max, yes, I'll get to that actually in a second. Max asked a question. Let me see if I show this one. Yeah, so is it possible? Yes, that's the great thing about stripes, and that's why I use it. And I just undid something because I was looking at two screens. So let me take that back. There we go, hit my back button. That will happen. Let's submit this. I'm going to put this guy back because I messed up. There we go. Yes, a negative number. Yeah, you can add as many colors as you want with stripes. So actually, all right, let me do this, and then I've got two questions lined up. So I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to put an alpha layer in. Alpha just lets me have some level of transparency or other control, but we're going to put this here, and then I'm going to put some more stripes in. And this stripes, I'm going to make these stripes a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go to 8,000, and you'll see why in a second. But I'm going to make them a little faster, and this is for the question that Max had about changing direction. The second number in stripes is the speed, but also the direction. So I'm going to put a negative number in. I'm going to go negative 200. And what that's going to do, a negative number in stripes will make it go this way. A positive number makes it pull in towards the hilt. So I'm going to have two directions happening here. All right. And now I want to put blue in because my blade is supposed to be blue. And then I want to offset that blue so that it really stands out with a really dim version of blue. So I'm going to go 60. And I'm only going to do two stripes, and they're small. And this is out of a lot of testing. And this is where, if I had gone through all the testing with everybody on screen, this would be like a 3 or 4 hour live stream. So I'm shortcutting it because I've already got this working pretty well. So now I'm going to submit here. And, oops, what did I do? Did I type something wrong? No, that's right. Oh, I forgot to put in my value. There we go. Alpha layer needs a function at the end. That's the reason you use alpha. So I'm going to use an integer. Within the alpha layers, 0 is totally invisible. And then the max value is 32,768. I know that seems like a random number. As you get into functions, and I do have videos on functions, you'll learn the value. I have kind of a diagram also that I did forget to put on this computer. But essentially, if 0 is being 0% and 32,768 is 100% visibility, I want to actually go a little bit below half. So after a lot of testing, I'm going to go to 12,000, and then I'm going to close up my alpha layer, and now it should take it. So now, and hopefully this shows up, there's actually two motions happening, and this looks more like clouds. So I've got the bottom layer is moving this direction, and it's got those stripes. The top layer is moving this direction with a little bit smaller stripe, but it's also moving faster. And what that does is that gives you this in and out movement, and it looks really, particularly in person, a lot of times, and I'm going to show the full thing on a demo video later. The brightness of the Sabers just wash out cameras. Sometimes these effects you have to have something reflective nearby, or you've got to just see them in person. But so now this is now going to be my clouds effect. So I've got my clouds effect here using two layers. One of them is a base stripe, and then the other one is basically it's 37% transparent alpha layer of stripes, and they're working again with each other so that you get this kind of rolling motion. You get the bottom layer going this way, the top layer going this way. This is how I built the smoke style that everybody, it's actually been a while, but similar concept. There's also some other styles that use this kind of effect, but for creating kind of a cloud look, that was the goal there. So now I've got clouds, and then I've already set up the transition. So I do have people joining in late. Let's see. Let me show here. Zeth. Yeah, third color to the base layer. So I'm thinking you mean stripes. So with stripes, you can add as many colors as you want in a row. Again, I've already kind of whittled it down based on what I'm trying to get after, so I am shortcutting. Oh yeah, I typically I just go like this route if I wanted to see this layer. So this is that base layer, and then I'll click on the alpha layer. That's that upper layer. So, but I think that's what you meant. And Frederick's added so many controls to this thing. Some of it I'm still learning. But so we are in this layers effect. So this is our cloud. So now I'm going to pull back. So what we're working on now is just this one section. I'm going to go all the way back up to the base layer concept, which is the transition loop. So now, because we added that transition earlier with those 3 bounces and then a delay, now what's happening is that cloud movement's moving, and that boing is bringing the base color of blue in. And it's essentially swapping those dimmed layers and those dimmed stripes for a full blue. And that's what creates that flashing effect, which is meant to be the thunder in the clouds. So now I've got, this is kind of it's a good start for a thunderstorm, but the connection with the rest of the style. Let's see. I haven't actually, I don't think I've done that. So, but yeah, I'll have to mess with that. Let's see. All right, so now I've got, this is my main thunderstorm effect. The only thing is, to me, and this is, again, from playing with this for a little while, so I have an advantage, is that it's repetitive. So thunderstorms are not always repetitive. So what's happening is it's doing its 3 bounces in 500 milliseconds, then it's running those stripes layers that I put together for 2000 milliseconds, and then it's doing it again. And what ends up happening is the longer you look at it, you see that pattern. I want it to be unpredictable. So now we're going to throw some functions in, and this will be a little more advanced. I do have already one, my latest crash course was on the beginning of functions. This is going to have a little bit more. I will circle back. There's so many functions, so many things to do with them. It's probably several videos long, but because I was working on this, we're going to get in. So what we're going to do is the thing I want to change. I like the 3 flashes of lightning. I think it works really well. I want to change the time that it happens. So that's where I'm going to go to this TR delay. And Brian pointed this out the last time. You can actually expand. So I don't want a fixed 2000 millisecond delay. I want a random 2000 millisecond delay. So I'm going to expand this. And basically with functions, all it's doing is it's adding this X. That X just means that it can take now random effects, or it can take other functions into the value. So if you just had TR delay, you can only put in the milliseconds, and that's just an integer of milliseconds that will run. Now, by putting the TR delay X in, I can actually drop a function in. And the function I'm going to use is one that I actually use in a lot of places, but it's kind of overlooked. It's slow noise. And slow noise, the name doesn't necessarily describe what it does. Well, essentially, it's just a random number pick. And it picks a random number between 0 and 32,768. So I'm going to use that, but I don't want a 32,768 delay, and I also don't want a 0 delay. So I'm going to put a scale. And then I'm going to put slow noise. And these functions are in the functions thing in here, but I'm typing them again, shortcutting it. You can just click on, but I know exactly what I need to drop in. So now slow noise has how often you want to have that random number generated, and you do want it at a pretty high frequency. So I'm going to go after 3000. And this is, again, from playing. This isn't like just common knowledge stuff. It's really just trial and error. And then I want to have some short delays, and I do like the 2000 millisecond delay. So I'm going to put in 100 millisecond delay. And then I have to close the scale up and then submit it. And I'm missing a comma. And it tells me right here. So if you do make mistakes, and I'm typing, it'll tell you right here. So now that should be good. So now I've got a random delay. So now you're going to see that those flashes are not in a pattern anymore. They are randomized. So those thunder flashes in the cloud effect is now going to be randomized. So there's going to be long gaps. There's going to be short gaps. And that's just by applying one function. So I built out a transition loop that's going to keep running. It's really just two transitions. It's a boing, and then it's a delay. But now the delay is randomized, and then all it's running is those two striped layers on top of each other that create the clouds. And this is a pretty good thunderstorm, and I've already tested on my Saber, so I already know it looks pretty decent. So this is now the baseline of the new thunderstorm style that'll be on the library. But that's not it. We do have some more we can do. Let me catch back up. Omitting a layer to check it. Okay, I got what you're saying. Yeah, you can. So I can comment out something here. You're saying. Oops, not if I type over it though. And it'll pull it out. Okay, I got what you're saying, Brian. Thanks. Yeah. So Brian was saying there. Okay. I got you. Yeah. I don't think I ever did that or knew that. Put you back. Get you running full. Yeah, so now I've got those flashes of lightning are going to be all over the place, which is the effect I was going for. All right. No, not random flicker for this one, Max, but that is, the random flicker would do similar. But what I'm trying to do is I'm using the transitions, so that delay and then randomizing the delay itself is what's basically making this effect run. But yes, random flicker does similar, but random flicker is for the entire blade, whereas I was going after the actual transition having that applied. So the function of that I dropped in, which is the slow noise, which randomly generates the 0 to 32768 at a frequency you can set. So it's just randomly picking numbers in there. But then you put the scale around it. So, and scale, it's come up on TRA recently. Scale actually controls a lot of the responsive stuff. So if you look deep into the responsive codes, basically because the OS is always trying to go from 0 to 32768 for all of them, for basically every function, you don't always want those values. Scale is what essentially puts a beginning and an end on everything. And so you end up using scale a lot. Yeah, scale went by quickly. It does. You know what? You're right. I did part of it. Yeah, scale will probably get a video of its own in the crash course. Let me pull scale back up for you. So all scale really is it's basically three values. So for scale is going to be, what do you want to scale? So what function, and pretty much every function in the OS returns 0 to 32768. And again, if anybody's brand new to Proffi and you're joining and you're listening to me and it sounds like I'm speaking Greek, this is more advanced. You don't have to know this stuff. You don't have to worry about the stuff yet. It's great to learn it. Like I said, I do have crash course videos that kind of build up, but I don't even think they've reached this point yet. I kind of jumped ahead just for this video. But that's why why I put my library together. So all of this stuff gets into my library, so you don't have to know what scale is. If you want to learn, if you want to build your own stuff, you can jump in and learn it. If you just want to be able to do this stuff on your Saber because you got a Proffieboard because you saw what it could do, that's what my library is for. So, and there's a lot of other people out there building styles and they share them openly. So you don't have to get to this level. So if you're joining in and you're like, oh my God, this is all programming and it's totally too scary and now I don't want my Proffieboard, this is advanced on purpose. This is to show the people who are interested in it. It's also to give kind of a glimpse into how we go after this stuff, as well as using the tools. It's not a requirement at all. Particularly my library, everything I think of is in that library, so that you don't have to go and rethink it or reinvent the wheel. So just in case I had anybody jump in midstream and all of a sudden I'm talking about scale and integers and slow noise and random numbers and 0 to 32768 and blowing your mind, you don't have to know this stuff. And particularly if you jumped in midstream, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But let me get back. So yeah, so scale, you just pick the function you want to scale, and then you pick the two, essentially the brackets that you want to put around it. So in this case, I bracketed it, so slow noise, which normally would return 0 to 32,768 at a pace of 3,000. I forget what the frequency breaks down to, but you want a pretty high frequency on that. Let me see what it just says change speed. I think it's in the .h file, but it's a frequency number, and usually you want it in the thousands for how frequently it changes. And then I put a bracket of 100 and 2,000. So randomly, it can only return numbers between 100 and 2,000. And because that's in my delay, that means that my delays now will only ever be randomly generated 100 or between 100 and 2,000. And that's what gives us the kind of unpredictable thunder effect. So went off on a long tangent there, but hopefully it's helpful. All right, so that's going to be one of the new styles, and I will show it. But I want to show, because this is a thunderstorm. It's meant to be the clouds with the flashes in the clouds. I'm adding a lightning strike. And we're going to add a lightning strike just by adding another layer. So there will be, in the library, I'll have two versions. I'm going to have thunderstorm, which is what you see right now. And then I'm going to actually have thunder and lightning, which is what we're going to build. So I've got all this stuff set up. So what ends up happening is this transition loop, this entire style is actually my base style now. So everything else will be added to this. So your ignition, retraction, blast, clash, everything else gets added to this. Well, that's going to be another video. Yeah, in the very beginning I was explaining, stripes is so flexible, and if you go really big with your stripes, you get some really, really awesome effects, Tom. So hopefully this will kind of give you some new ideas. All right, so let's go. I'm going to open a separate window because I want to build my lightning, but I want to do it from scratch again for everybody. So let's go build some lightning. So now the lightning is going to be a layer on top of my base. So I'm going to actually let's go into layers, and I'm going to build. Now I'm doing it separately just for teaching purposes. You can build it all in one place, but I want to, yes, Brian, yes, scale essentially just sets limits. It can also be used, there's a few other places that it's used as a multiplier. That's probably even further advanced, so we'll get to that. But essentially, for most purposes, scale just puts limits on the return of the function. So the function any function that would normally return 0 to 32,768, you put a scale around it, and all of a sudden it can only can't go any lower than what you set or any higher than what you set, no matter what it's returning. So what happens, like you'll see it. Actually, where is it used? It's used in localized lockup, responsive lockup. That's what you're seeing in the templates of responsive lockup L is actually the low end and high end of the scale, and that's where you can set the parameter for how low the lockup section goes and how high it is. It's actually scale. It's in an alias, so you're picking those two numbers and you're not realizing it's a scale, but that's what scales that movement of the responsive lockup section, and that's a lot of other places. If you look into the .h even in a lot of the styles, they already have scale built into them on purpose. But scale is in a lot of places, and it's a really powerful function. And I completely lost my train of thought. We're building lightning. I am getting older. All right, so let's go to, I'm going to put another transition, and I'm going to put a transition loop. But as I said very early, because I'm doing layers, I can't do a transition loop on top of a transition loop because it'll block it out. So we're going to put lightning. We're going to put lightning in as a transition loop. And this is going to be a lightning strike. So we're going to go lightning strike, and you always have your transition loop running. I don't want a fade. Strike is actually going to wipe in, so it's going to come from the tip down. And then let's see. Actually, we're going to, never mind. That's the third thing I'm going to show. I'm jumping ahead. I'm going to use a TR wipe at speed because lightning moves a lot faster than that. Let's go here. I'm not doing red lightning. I'm going to do some white lightning. And then I'm going to change this into another wipe to trail it. So what happens is with a TR concat, and if some of this stuff isn't, again, some of this may seem more advanced, with a TR concat, it just allows you to put multiple transitions together to essentially act almost like a script. So what it's telling it is it's going to do a wipe of this color, and then it's going to wipe, and what it wipes out to is nothing, because this is a layer, so it would wipe to whatever's under it. If you have a transition loop, it would return whatever's that base color. But let's change you, submit that. So now, so that's obviously a pretty good lightning strike. It's a lot of them, and it's not perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another layer. Or actually, I'm going to add some effects to that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually turn this into a random blink. Where'd you go? There you are. And then I'm going to really up the blinking. And then I'm going to change you to white. Submit you. And let's take a peek. That looks a little bit more like lightning. It's just happening a little too often. So that's going to be the basis for our lightning strike, but we've got to add a little bit more control to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to the end here, and we're going to add, let's see, what did we use? We used yeah. So we're going to add an alpha layer of white, but I'm going to make it clear. So I'm setting, and I'm going to explain this in 1 second. And then we are going to add a delay. And this delay, let's make this delay a little bit longer. All right, so what we're doing, strand, let's see. Yeah, Tom, yes, strobe with a random per LED flicker also looks really good. What this, again, this I have the advantage of having run through this. When this gets combined with the thunderstorm is the end effect that I wanted. I actually tried a bunch of different combos. Yeah, part of it is with strobe, the speed of this effect actually doesn't let the strobe show, and there's times where the lightning appears at the end only because of how the strobe ends up being. But you could do a lot of different effects on this. And even once this is up on the library, feel free to pull it down and swap stuff out. But this is from having done it already and seeing the end result. So now we've got the lightning's happening a lot more spaced out, which is a little more realistic. But again, it's not quite random enough. So we're going to go back into this. That's what I was going to explain. So if I go, so what happens, right, is we started off with the concat, and the format for concat is transition, color, transition. It always has to begin and end with a transition. It has to have a color to transition to in between. Because this is a layer, I'm going to be sticking this on top of something. I didn't want another color. So what I did was I dropped this alpha layer in white, and you can put any color, and I set the function at 0. If you set int 0 on an alpha layer, it means that it has 0% opacity, which means it's clear, which means it's almost, it's not there. It's there, but it doesn't show on your blade, so it lets you get around stuff. And you'll see this too in a lot of styles, particularly all those really compound like prions, as well as just a lot of places where I use big TR concats. You're going to see an alpha layer. Sometimes it'll have the blade color in it. Sometimes it'll have white. Sometimes it'll have black. No, not black. You can't do clear black. White, different colors. But then if you see an alpha function with int 0, it's actually invisible. And what it is essentially it's a placeholder that lets me get this delay in. So now I've got my lightning strikes, but those lightning strikes are a little bit spaced out. So we're going to go here, we'll expand, and we're going to turn this into a function again. And we're going to use the same slow noise. And then I want a little more timing between lightning strikes. So I already have the 3000. So I'm going to limit. So I'm using scale. I'm limiting my random return to be between 300 and 3000 milliseconds on my delays. And I have to close that scale up. This time I got my comma in there. Submit it. I missed something. I forgot to close slow noise. Happens to all of us. That should do it. There it is. So now that's going to be my lightning strikes. And there'll be long gaps, and then eventually it'll be short gaps because it's randomly choosing that delay time. So now I've got this working pretty well. And I actually have tested out a lot of different things. Like I said, this was the one I was happiest with once I got it on the blade for the end result. But you can definitely swap out a lot of these things. You can swap out timings, you can swap out intensity, you can even swap out that random blink for the strobe or the random per LED. Let's see. Yeah. Yes, space scaling is very, very powerful. And Brian, you're following along at it. Great. Yeah, I'm having a hard time multitasking between reading the comments and doing this, so more power to you. All right, so I got my lightning strike working. I'm going to just copy this, and I'm going to bring it over to this guy. All right, so he's already ready to go, so we're going to layer him up. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to get to the very end of this. I'm going to close up my layers. Then I need a comma at the end of that guy. And then I'm going to paste my lightning strike. And hoping I didn't do anything wrong, I hit submit, and there we go. So this is going to be thunder and lightning. So it's going to have your thunderstorm running in the background. It's going to have the flashes in the clouds. And then you actually get your strikes mixed in. So this will be the second style that's coming to the library. And again, they'll be blue, but they'll also be all the different colors once I get it all built out. So that's why it'll probably be tomorrow night, maybe Thursday if I don't get time. But it's coming to the library, but you guys got to see it. So now I've got, this will be another base layer, and then you can add all the effects that you want. So this is thunder and lightning. So it's got my moving clouds going in two directions. It's got my flashes in the clouds with the bright blue, and then it's got the lightning strikes going on. So this is going to be thunder and lightning. And now the last piece that we're going to build, and I'm running long, so I might not have as much time for questions as I thought. This actually, but I'm hoping I answered stuff as I went. So now with layers, this is running all the time. So the last piece, and obviously you have blast and clash and lockup and all that other stuff to add, and that you can, it basically, once you learn the layers, adding those is easy. But the last piece of the puzzle is going to be having it ignite and retract. And what I'm going to build and what's going to be on the library is we're actually going to build a lightning strike ignition to go along with this new lightning and thunder. So I'm going to put, so that's my close of layers. So now, and this is in the crash course videos. Again, if you're new, this is going to be maybe not something new. Let me get to the end of that line, put a comma, go to this line. So we're going to use, there's two layers you can use to basically control ignition and retraction. One is the in-out helper L, and the other one is in-out TRL. I like the in-out TRL because it lets you use transitions instead of timings, and the transitions let you do a lot more stuff. So we're going to add in-out TRL as a layer. Now I'm going to start, and this is what I was starting to do before. I'm going to just start with a wipe, and that's my ignition transition. Essentially, is it's going to do a wipe, and then we're going to do a TR wipe again, and we're going to. This is essentially a run up to retract, and we're going to close that layer. So what ends up happening when you have in-out helper L or in-out TRL, tongue-tied, in-out TRL, it's going to cover everything that's basically happens before it when the blade is off. When the blade is on, it does this transition of a wipe to allow for that, the layers underneath it to show through. So we'll submit it. So right now there's no power to the blade, it's off. So black is off. When I hit power, I'm getting that wipe effect. And then when I hit retract, it wipes back out. But that's not a lightning strike, that's just a wipe. So we're going to swap out TR wipe, and that'll be down here. You can put concats in out TRL, which is what we're going to do. So I'm going to take this, and I'm actually going to do a TR concat. And the TR concat is a transition, color transition, and you can have as many as you want. It just always has to be color, transition, color, transition is the order, and it always has to begin with transition and end with the transition. So we're going to do a wipe. We're going to wipe in the lightning, and I'm going to use, because I want to keep it kind of matching, we're going to do the random blink. We're going to do a regular random blink, and I'm going to explain why. If I put a layer in this concat, the base will actually show through. So it takes away from the effect. So we're going to use random blink instead. And then we're going to do a white and black. And my fingers are all over the place. What's going on here? How did I even... What did I hit? I don't know what I hit. There we go. I hit the wrong keys apparently. There we go. All right, so now that's going to be my lightning coming in. And actually I want in. And it did want TR wipe in. And I want quickly out. And then, so that's going to be, let's close it there. Submit it. We'll do this in pieces. So it's, I got to get up out of there. Let me get to here. Let me go back up all the way. And then when I hit power, so it's showing, it's still showing my base. So I need to do a little bit more in that concat. So what we're going to do here is it's happening too quickly. There you are, TR concat, right? So I've got that happening. I need it to go black. Actually, you know what we're going to do? This is what I actually did. Mix it. And mix is something else that I've covered in different videos. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do a smooth step. Let's do, I'm forgetting what I did for these values and I didn't write them. So we're going to make this one up. It might be a little different in the final step when it hits the library. And we'll do that. It's a smooth step. I am taking some shortcuts because time, and I do have a family I got to take care of. Let's get, that's right, smooth step, yep. And then we're going to do black and white. And we'll extend this one a little bit longer. That should be it. Good to go. Let's see what that comes back with. Didn't cover what I wanted to cover. What did I miss? I missed something. I have this working. I missed a step. That's what I missed. Best laid plans. Let's see you again. No, something's not right. I missed a step in that. Wipe. Blank. All right, I gotta go peek at my. What did I do for you? I did something different. What did I do different? Oh, I got a lot of steps on that. I didn't build this one totally right. That's what you get for not taking as many notes. I'm going to cheat because I am running low on time. And I want to, actually, I'm going to stop here because I do want to show you guys the actual effect. So I had notes up until the last one and I figured I could wing this part, and obviously I was wrong. But it will be working in the library. There's two other steps that have to happen to get this to look right for the lightning strike, and I'll show you what the end result is. So let me show that, let's switch out to this guy. And we're going to take you away. Oh, I guess I can't turn off my camera because you guys won't hear me. Let's do this here. All right. So I'm still learning this StreamYard. So if I took my camera feed off, you guys won't be able to hear me. So let's leave that. And then, yes, yeah, it's all right. Let's show these guys off. Let me gotta switch positions. And now I can't see my computer, so I'm really hoping it shows. All right, so this is Jesse Kirkbride's Thor font again. So this is the Thunder, and this is going to have the lightning strike ignition that I was trying to build. I'm hoping everybody hears me. Can't see this. All right, it looks like it's showing. So that was the lightning strike, and then I had built a smooth step at the base, and then this is the thunderstorm. So what you're seeing is the cloud moving up and down. So you're getting that movement up and down, and you're getting that thunder flash. And then I just had a normal retraction. You want me to put the hammer down? And I really hope everybody hears me because I'm so far from the camera. And then this is going to be the thunder and lightning. And again, I have the lightning strike ignition. Oops. How did I do? Okay. Something got messed up. Let's see. You want me to put the hammer down? And always have technical difficulties. You want me to put the hammer down? Let's try it one more. Come on. All right, so that one's not working. It was working earlier. I must have changed the setting. All right. All right, so thunder and lightning. I must have messed something up when I did that last upload. And again, live always seems to mess with me. All right, we will get, so I do, yeah, I know, you believe me. Yeah, they were working. I did tweak a few things, and I must have messed up my in-out layer because it wasn't igniting. But they will be added to the library. So you'll have the new thunderstorm style. You'll have thunder and lightning coming, and then you'll have the lightning strike ignition. Those will be added to the library as soon as I get them done. So tomorrow evening, possibly Thursday, and I'll do an announcement on them. And then we will also get the, hopefully this helped some people out. I know for some users this might be really advanced, but hopefully get that. But let me see, yeah, let's see. I've got a couple minutes and then I do have to go. Any questions I can answer really quickly, perhaps? Otherwise, thanks everyone for joining. I hope you got something out of it. I know I rambled a little bit and I always had technical difficulties. Seems like that seems to be commonplace now when I go live. So I guess that's going to be my thing. Yeah, that first, yeah. So there is actually already a lightning summon Prion in the library. That's going to be lightning strike ignition, and it's what I was trying to build for you guys without my notes. It's actually a 3-stage ignition. It has the lightning come in, it sits at the emitter, and it'll go out. There is a Prion already in the library. If you go through, you can pick it. But you can, this will be an ignition. So if you don't have Prion, you would use this one. If you wanted a Prion, you could do the Prion also. It would be similar. Let's see, Peter. I always go back to my unstable, my Kylo unstable. That's what got me in. My Kylo Ren saber is what got me into Proffi. And then building that unstable style, I literally watched scenes from the film, had the editor open, and just was doing everything I could to mimic every little nuance to it. Even at certain scenes, you get that burst of power that kind of runs up really quick. And I wanted to get as close as I could. So for me, my Unstable, which has now been around for a long time, that's still my favorite because that was the one that got me into doing custom styles, and it's also the one that I feel like I spent the longest on that one. A lot of these other ones are, I love, I just love coming up with new ideas. But sometimes I even forget after a little while the ones that I've built. So the one that always comes back to me is going to be the Kylo Unstable. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks everybody. I do appreciate it. I'm glad everybody likes the stuff. I'm hoping this was all helpful. And I'm going to try to. So I will have the. Yeah, Peter. Thanks. Yeah, that's that one. It was built off of the TFA. Force Awakens is the one I majorly mimicked. They went a little crazier in certain scenes. Yeah, Thunderstorm. Thanks. Yeah. I once you guys have Thunderstorm, let me know what you think, obviously, and tweak it. So again, I design the stuff with my vision and what I'm trying to get after, but you can change just a few little things. And then all of a sudden you get an even better effect that's personalized to you. So that's why I have the check and editor button on the library, because I'm hoping that through the combination of the crash course videos, and then if I get to do these live ones, and actually I really love one to go off without a technical hitch, hopefully build up kind of everybody's knowledge for the editor, and then everybody goes off and comes up with even more stuff. So but thanks everybody who joined. If you're catching this after, if you want to catch me the next time, I'm going to try to do these every Tuesday, but family life and work life might get in the way, so I can't always schedule a week ahead. Usually by the weekend, I figure out if I'm going to be able to fit it in or not. And actually, I do have to go. I do have kids that I have to take care of, as well as wife, and some house stuff. So thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and I will make an announcement as soon as I do have those 2 new styles and new ignition on the library. I've just got to get the other colors built out, get them built in, and that'll be live. So appreciate everybody. Thanks for joining, and we'll do this again soon. Enjoy.